I had another slow reading week. It was a Netflix kind of week, and so I didn't read a whole lot. But I did get 85 pages into D.H. Lawrence's Women in Love. This is actually the second time that I've read the first 50 pages. I read the first 50 pages after a few too many gin and tonics last weekend, and I couldn't really remember what it is I'd read, so I started over sober earlier this week, and on a whim I finally picked up Sartre's Being in Nothingness, which has been sitting on my shelf forever, and it's this battered old paperback that I paid like $4 for from a used bookshop about 2 years ago. The problem is this: as I read, it is rapidly disintegrating. Almost every page I turn, something jumps out at me. So I've resorted to some tape. I actually stapled a hunk of the pages together. This is to avoid losing them as I read on buses and stuff. I don't even know if I'm even going to be able to make it all the way through this without it completely falling apart. And because it's falling apart so much, I didn't think it would be a big deal if I dog-eared the page. So this is pretty dense and pretty difficult to get through. And I've tried before, and I know if I dwell on every word, every sentence, every passage, trying to figure out exactly what is being said, I will never get through it. I will get bogged down, I will get frustrated. So I'm using a tactic that I've often used before for difficult texts. On my first read through, I just plow right through. If I don't understand a passage, I move on, and I get to the end and I can look at it and say, okay, I've read it. I've got the general concepts, general ideas, and then if I feel it's worth it, I can go back for a second, slower read through and try to understand some of those passages that perhaps I didn't understand, perhaps were unclear, things I missed, that sort of thing. Although it will be a miracle if I can do a reread of this edition. I love this edition, don't get me wrong. It's a great paperback. It smells great, but I don't think it's going to survive. It is from the 1960s, I believe, or the 1970s. So this is like a 40, 50-year-old paperback. Fourth printing, 1969. Yeah, so this is like a 50-year-old paperback. No wonder it's falling apart. So I'm going to finish the D.H. Lawrence, probably read a little bit more of The Being in Nothingness, and then I've got some fresh Simone de Beauvoir on my agenda for this weekend. I ordered used online a while back and it finally came. Her collection of short stories called When Things of the Spirit Come First, and this is a collection of her early writings. So these predate pretty much all her well-known works. So these are 5 early tales, and they're translated by Patrick O'Brien, who seems to do pretty great translations. So I'll be excited to dig into these. Perhaps I'll film a separate video and let you know what I think of this collection here. So those are my reading plans for the weekend. It's like 90 degrees here, and I just turned on my oven to bake a crisp because I've got a bunch of fruit that I picked up really cheap and I don't want it to go bad. So I'm just going to suffer for a bit, probably do some reading tonight, and I've got season 8 of ER that's going to be delivered in the next hour or so. I bought the DVD season because it's cheaper that way than buying it digitally. So that's going to take up a big hunk of my weekend. Not a lot going on here in Ottawa this rest of July.